One of the things I hear very often as a priest when people come to talk to me is a simple but very heavy question. Father, why? Do you know why did this illness happen? Why did this tragedy happen to my family? Why did God allow this? And you know what? Sometimes people don't even expect a perfect answer. Very often they simply want someone to sit with them and listen when they wrestle with that questions. And you know what? I really understand that questions because sometimes I myself ask that questions too. Now, let me tell you this story. There was a man in a church who was famous for falling asleep during the homily every single Sunday. I don't mean to talk to anybody who get used to their meditation during the homily to continue to do your meditations, okay? And no matter how hard the pastor tried, within a few minutes the man would be sound asleep. And one Sunday, the pastor decided to try something new. In the middle of the homily, the pastor shouted, "All those who want to go to heaven, stand up, please." And the entire congregation stood up except the sleeping man. And then the pastor shouted louder, even louder and louder again, "All those who want to go to hell, and this time not heaven, stand up please." And the man certainly stood up, wide awake, and standing right there, stood there looking confused. And he looked around the church, and said to the pastor, "Pastor, I do not know what we are voting on, but it does look like it is just you and me." It is a funny story. Yes, it is a funny story, but in a way that it sets something true about us. Sometimes when life feels like that moment when a man woke up in the middle of the homily, something important is happening and we do not fully understand it. And when life surprises us, when illness appears, when suffering enters our life, and when something painful happens, and we certainly find ourselves asking the same question, why? Oh, by the way, so for those who love singing karaoke, know this song, Papa. Do you know that song? You know, Papa, it goes like this. When she died, Papa broke down, he cried, and all he could say was, "God, why her? Take me." Every day he sits there sleeping in a rocking chair. He never went upstairs because she wasn't there. So God, why her? Take me, why? And the song Boulevard, "I don't know why you said goodbye." You know, seriously, I don't know. I don't know why. Why, God? I don't know. But I know one thing, that question is not new. Because in today's gospel, the disciple asked Jesus the exact same question when they see a man who was born blind. And he asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned? This man or his parents so that he was born blind?" You know, it is an old question, but it is still very modern, contemporary. When someone gets sick, when tragedy strikes, and when life feels unfair and people start asking, is this a punishment? Did anyone do something wrong? Is God blaming someone? Even today, people ask, what did I do to deserve this? And we are uncomfortable with suffering, so we look for someone to blame. And sometimes we blame ourselves, sometimes we blame others, and sometimes we even blame God. Why? And in today's gospel, Jesus completely turned that way of thinking upside down. And he answered, neither this man nor his parents sinned. It is so that the works of God might be made visible through him. Now, pay attention to what he does. Notice what he does. Jesus refuses to play the blame game right there. He refuses to do that. The disciples are looking backward, looking for a reason for the sin who caused these. But Jesus looks forward. What can God do now? We can see very different. What can God do now? And what can God do now tells us that the blindness of the man is not a punishment. But Jesus sees an opportunity. This is an opportunity for the grace of God, for God's grace to be revealed. And then something amazing, surprising happens. Jesus spits on the ground, making clay with the saliva and putting clay on the man's eyes, and he tells the man to go wash in the pool of Siloam. Now think about this moment for a little bit. Think about this. Jesus, what did you do? Spitting on the ground. I want to tell you, you're so lucky at that time, spitting on the ground, and nobody kicked you out of the temple. I'm going to tell you, in 2020, if you were here, they will kick your ass out of the church just because spitting germs and diseases, right? You know, I'm going to 6 feet away from you. But you were so lucky at that time. Nobody said anything to you. Even you did that action, you know. So, spitting on the ground, and we can see right that the miracle is not finished yet. The miracle is not finished yet. The man is still blind, and clay with the saliva is still on his face, and people are still watching. And then Jesus tells the man to go. Now, that means the man has to move. He has to trust. He has to cooperate. And healing involves grace from Jesus and a step of faith from the man. And we can see when the man obeys, he listens, he goes and watches, he comes back being able to see, right? The grace, we can see, the grace is always a gift from God, and very often God invites each one of us to participate in that grace. And if we listen, we act it out, a miracle will happen, right? So, and that is the way God acts, and we respond. And this is the pattern we can see throughout Scripture. So what does this mean for us today? So it means that not every hardship in our lives is a punishment. Sometimes God can take the very thing we struggle with and use it to reveal something beautiful. Sometimes the place of our weakness becomes the place where God's power shines. But there is another lesson here we can learn. We have a part to play right there. Doing our part, have a part to play. In today's gospel, Jesus could have healed the man instantly and immediately. He has done that before. But instead he says, go wash Do you know why? Because healing of faith often involves taking the next step, even when we cannot even see the outcomes. Maybe for some of us, or many of us, Jesus is saying, take the step. So what step? Take the step. And the step is returning to prayer. The step is praying, fasting, and almsgiving in this season of Lent. The step is being nice, kind to everybody. The step is taking care of your parents, your kids, and being faithful to your spouses. The step is not ignoring our neighbor who is anyone God places in our path. The step is letting go of something that has been bothering me over the years. The step is trusting Jesus, trusting God during a difficult time, the difficult moments in life. The step is finally getting back, coming back to the sacraments. And we can see grace is already being offered, but sometimes we are like the sleeping man in a church. We certainly wake up in the middle of life and we do not understand exactly what is happening. And God may be working already, but we haven't yet learned to see it. Healing of faith is not passive. Healing of faith listens to Jesus and acts. And when we listen and act, when we do our part, something beautiful begins to happen. We begin to see. At the end of today's gospel, the healed man does more than see physically. He comes to recognize who Jesus really is. He does that. He becomes a missionary. The miracle doesn't just restore his physical sight. It draws him into a relationship with Jesus. And that is always the deeper purpose of God's work in our lives. Because God's grace is not only about fixing problems, it is also about bringing us closer to Jesus. And that is our journey too. So together as a community of faith, we listen to him, we trust his word, and we take the step he asked of us. And slowly our eyes begin to see, to open. So this week, when life still presents challenges or questions, instead of asking the question why, we may ask something different. Oh Lord, how can your works be made visible here? Because God is still working. Grace is still being offered. And if we listen, if we trust him, do our part, and step forward in faith, we often discover that the greatest miracle is not only that our eyes are opened, but that our hearts are drawn closer and closer to him.